The Concorde project was a groundbreaking but ultimately ill-fated venture in aviation history, marked by remarkable engineering achievements and significant economic and environmental challenges. The supersonic passenger airliner, developed jointly by British and French governments, promised to revolutionize air travel with its ability to fly at twice the speed of sound. The idea of supersonic passenger transport emerged in the 1950s. The British Aircraft Corporation and the French Sud Aviation began independent studies on supersonic transport. In 1962, the British and French governments signed a treaty to collaborate on the project, leading to the formal start of the Concorde program. The first prototype, Concorde 001, made its maiden flight on March 2, 1969, from France. Extensive testing followed, including supersonic flights and transatlantic trials to ensure the aircraft's safety, performance, and passenger comfort. The Concorde project faced numerous technical challenges, leading to escalating development costs. The final expenditure was significantly higher than initial estimates. The 1973 oil crisis further exacerbated financial issues, as the Concorde's engines were highly fuel-intensive, making operating costs extremely high. The high costs of tickets, driven by expensive operating costs, meant that the Concorde was accessible only to wealthy passengers and niche markets. Initial expectations of mass production and widespread commercial use dwindled as orders from airlines were cancelled or scaled back. Only 20 Concordes were built, including prototypes and pre-production models. The development costs of the Concorde were so great that they could never be recovered from operations, and the aircraft was never financially profitable. Total expenditure on this project amounted to be somewhere between 1.5 and 2.1 billion pounds in 1976, which amounts to roughly 9.4 billion to 13.2 billion pounds in 2019. So the question is, why the British and French governments kept on investing in this project despite knowing early on that this will not be a profitable venture? The answer is simple, yet complicated. Imagine investing a great deal of your time, effort, or money on something, and you discover that it is not worth it in the long run. Would you keep trying to make it work, hoping that by some way it will turn around, or would you just give up? Psychologists call it the sunk cost fallacy, where individuals or organizations continue to invest in a project based on the amount of resources already committed, rather than on its current and future value. It is mainly driven by the fear of loss. To understand it better, we must understand how the fear of losses works. Think about it. Have you ever gone to see a movie only to realize within 15 minutes or so that you're watching one of the worst films ever made? But you sat through it anyway. You didn't want to waste the money, so you slid back in your chair and suffered. Maybe you once bought non-refundable tickets to a concert, and when the night arrived, you felt sick or tired or hungover. Perhaps something more appealing was happening at the same time. You still went, even though you didn't want to, in order to justify spending money you knew you could never get back. If you have experienced a version of any of these, congratulations, you fell victim to the sunk cost fallacy. If you liked the video so far, please subscribe. Thank you. Hall Arkes and Catherine Bloomer created an experiment in 1985 which demonstrated your tendency to go fuzzy when sunk costs come along. They asked subjects to assume they had spent $100 on a ticket for a ski trip in Michigan, but soon after found a better ski trip in Wisconsin for $50 and bought a ticket for this trip too. They then asked the people in the study to imagine they learned the two trips overlapped and the tickets couldn't be refunded or resold. Which one do you think they chose? The $100 good vacation or the $50 great one? Over half of the people in the study went with the more expensive trip. It may not have promised to be as fun, but the loss seemed greater. That's the fallacy at work, because the money is gone no matter what. You can't get it back. The fallacy prevents you from realizing the best choice is to do whatever promises the better experience in the future, not which negates the feeling of loss in the past. Similarly, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky conducted an experiment to demonstrate the sunk cost fallacy. See how you do with this one. Imagine you go to see a movie which costs $10 for a ticket. When you open your wallet or purse, you realize you've lost a $10 bill. Would you still buy a ticket? You probably would. 88% of the subjects said they would. Now imagine you go to see the movie and pay $10 for a ticket. But right before you hand it over to get inside, you realize you have lost it. Would you go back and buy another ticket? Maybe, but it would hurt a lot more. In the experiment, 46% of people said they would. The situation is the exact same. You lose $10 and then must pay $10 to see the movie, but the second scenario feels different. It seems as if the money was assigned to a specific purpose and then lost. And loss sucks. If you accidentally dropped your cell phone off the side of a cruise ship, it would take a high-tech submarine to find it again. While you could spend a lot of money to recover it, you probably wouldn't waste more money on a lost cause. In such clear-cut situations, you can easily congratulate yourself on being logical and rational. However, in real life, sunk costs are not always so obvious. Meet Jake. He's been working at the same company for nearly a decade. When he first started, Jake was full of enthusiasm and ambition, ready to climb the corporate ladder. But over the years, things changed. Fresh out of college, Jake landed what he thought was his dream job. The pay was decent, the company was prestigious, and the potential for growth seemed limitless. But as the years went by, Jake's enthusiasm waned. The long hours, constant stress, and lack of meaningful progress started to take a toll on him.
Why am I still here? I don't enjoy this anymore. But I have invested so much time and effort. I can't just leave.
But Jake, if you're unhappy, why don't you look for something else?
I've been here for so long. I've put in so much work. It would be a waste to throw it all away.
This is the sunk cost fallacy at work. Jake feels trapped by the time and effort he has already invested in his job, even though it no longer makes him feel happy or fulfilled. He's clinging to the past, unable to see that his investments are gone, just like his phone would be if he dropped it into the ocean. We all have fallen victim to this fallacy at some point in our life. Maybe you are in a relationship that no longer makes you happy, but you're afraid to step out of it due to the long period and effort you have already put into it. Or perhaps you have majored in a college course that you're no longer interested in, but walking out makes you feel that you incurred a loss. And loss sucks. Avoiding this fallacy is easier said than done, but here are some ways to make better decisions and free yourself from the weight of past investments. Shift your focus from what you've already invested to what you can gain in the future, and regularly evaluate the potential future benefits versus the future costs. Another way is to have clear and measurable goals that guide your decisions, and then make the decisions based on whether they help you achieve these goals, not based on the past investments. This might be the hardest one. Recognize and acknowledge your emotional attachment to your initial investments, and focus on making decisions based on logic and evidence rather than emotions. And of course, be willing to change the course if new information or circumstances suggest a better path. And view setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures. With clear mindfulness, this fallacy can be avoided in everyday situations. Needless to say, sunk costs drive wars, push up prices in auctions, and keep failed political policies alive. The fallacy makes you finish the meal when you're already full. It fills your home with things you no longer want or use. Every garage sale is a funeral for someone's sunk costs. The sunk cost fallacy is sometimes called the Concorde fallacy when describing it as an escalation of commitment, with reference to the construction of the first commercial supersonic airliner. The project was predicted to be a failure early on, but everyone kept going. Their shared investment built a hefty psychological burden, which outweighed their better judgments. After losing an incredible amount of money, effort, and time, didn't want to just give up. It is a noble and exclusively human tendency, the desire to persevere, the will to stay the course. Studies show lower animals and small children do not commit this fallacy. Wasps and worms, rats and raccoons, toddlers and tykes. They do not care how much they've invested or how much goes to waste. They can only see immediate losses and gains. As an adult human being, you have the gift of reflection and regret. You can predict a future where you must admit your efforts were in vain, your loss is permanent, and when you accept the truth, it's going to hurt. But most important of all, remember this: your future is worth a lot more than your past